then that's what makes it fun for me, was getting nervous and getting excited about it, and learning to put your nerves, make them work for you instead of against you. I think if you weren't worried or nervous, it would take for me it would take a lot of the fun out of it, and the thrill of the winning.
Welcome to Practical Horseman's podcast, featuring conversations with respected riders, industry leaders, and horse care experts. The show is co-hosted by Practical Horseman editors, and our goal is to inform, educate, and inspire. I'm Sandra Olenek, and this week's episode is with top hunter and equitation trainer and U.S. equestrian Big R judge Don Stewart. Finding and developing horses who are good jumpers and good movers has been Don Stewart's forte for 45 years in the business. During that time, he's proven his expertise by winning innumerable championships as a rider and a coach at all the major shows, including Devon, the Pennsylvania National, the Washington International, and the National Horse Show. As a rider, Don's list of accomplishments is long and distinguished. It started with winning the 1969 Virginia Hunter Seat Equitation Championship. And if you ask Don about the AHSA Horse of the Year titles he earned as a rider in the 1980s and 90s, he easily and proudly lists them off, including four-time winner Auspicious, his personal favorite, two-time winner Without a Doubt, David Banner, Tommy John, Canadian Voyager, Phantasm, Case in Point, Leave Me a Roan, Western Prospect, and Heartstrings. Other notable moments for Don is riding Meant to Be to the 1989 Grand Championship Green Hunter title at Harrisburg and Moment to the Working Hunter Classic at the 1989 World Cup. In 1992, he was the leading hunter rider at the Devon Horse Show, and in 1993 and 1995, he was the National Horse Show's leading hunter rider. Although buying, showing, and selling top hunters is a large part of Don's business, he's equally well known as a coach for junior and amateur riders. By the time he graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in History at North Carolina State University, he had had enough students to open his own training facility. Some of Don's students' notable wins include the AHSA USCF Horse of the Year titles with junior horses including Nobel, Elfin Magic, Hilton, Danceaway, Fernwalk, Double Cinco, Cleopatra Smile, and North Face. Horse of the Year ponies include Sassafras Creek, Trivial, Tickled Pink, and For Kids' Sake. Success for his students also included the equitation finals. Emily Williams won both the ASPCA Maclay National Championship and the USEF Hunter Seat Equitation Medal Final in 1999. Other Maclay winners are Kelly Farmer in 1993, Sarah Millerin in 2011, and Hunter Holloway in 2016. And medal winners include Lauren Van Eldick, who trained with Don since she was a short stirrup rider in 2003, Meg O'Mara in 2012, Spencer Smith in 2014, and Kelly Cruciati in 2015. Many of these riders are now professionals in the horse industry. But during our interview, Don offered up his proudest moment, when his daughter Erin won the 2002 ASPCA Maclay National Championship, which capped off a junior career that included the Grand and Junior Hunter Championship titles at the Washington International in 2001. For those efforts, she was named the competition's best child rider, a feat she repeated in 2002. She also earned Grand Championship titles at Devon and the National Horse Show. As we chatted, Don's sense of humor, well known among friends and peers, came through when I asked him about his mentors, to which he replied with a chuckle, "Being a know-it-all myself, it's kind of hard to act like I don't know everything." He went on to say that he tried to associate himself with and emulate top riders such as Katie Prudant, Leslie Burr Howard, Michael Matz, Conrad Homfeld, and Joe Fargas, as well as distinguished Virginia horsemen such as J. Arthur Reynolds and Francis Rowe. He says his biggest mentor was renowned horseman Walter Jimmy Lee. Don sold his business, Don Stewart Stables in Ocala, Florida, 2 years ago, though he's still developing and training horses and expanding into the jumper arena. He and his wife Nancy, with whom he raised 2 children in addition to Erin, Dawn and Whitney, are still based in Ocala, Florida, where they rent a farm. Now, let's jump right into our conversation with Don, where he starts by talking about how horses came into his life.
I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina, originally, and there's a place where y'all took riding lessons once or twice a week, and that started the passion of the horse. They also had a lot of other sports, say basketball, football, baseball. They had a upground swimming pool there too. It was like a cheesy summer camp, but that's where I developed a lot of friendships and the love of the horse.
What is it about horses and the sport that's kept you involved for so long?
I guess it's trying to achieve my goals and repeat some of the things we've won. I'm lucky enough to make my passion my vocation, so that's always been I feel I'm lucky in that respect. It's always changing, and to try to keep current is always challenging for a 68-year-old.
Mm-hmm. How would you say you try to stay current and evolve? And certainly a lot has changed over the years.
Yes, it certainly has. When I was a kid, the hunters took the main stage, and the jumpers are more or less horses that were either too hot or jumped in bad style, were sort of the jumpers. So I've seen the jumpers evolve and take the stage away from the hunters.
And for your career highlights, I was reading you were at the National Horse Show, the leading hunter rider in 1993 and 1995. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that was those are, I guess, considered highlights. I think I had nice horses and just, did well those particular years. So I was leading rider in 92 at Devon. And those are sort of goals that I had in the back of my head I would certainly like to achieve. I put that on the bucket list with a check next to them. I was happy to do that. Probably my most significant or proudest moment was my daughter winning the ASPCA McClay Finals in 2002. That was a goal that I'd always had. And she also was grand champion at Washington and Devon and the National with a couple of different horses. So that was horses we'd picked out. So that was nice. Any of those national championships that we won, where we had one girl that won the medal finals, Lauren Van Eldick, who'd been with us since she was a short stirrup rider she lived right down the street from us. That's always exciting. I've owned a lot of Grand Prix horses with Aaron Vale. That's exciting when they do well. Had one that was second in the $1 million class. Fanu, he's blind in one eye, and he won the Puissance the last 3 years at Washington. That's a top jumper. It's a little more exciting, I guess, because the stage is more set for the jumpers than it is for the hunters.
Mm-hmm. So you're known for hunters and training hunters and equitation, but you're involved in the jump.
We've had some success with the jumpers. We won the $25,000 junior amateur classic was at Southampton with Sinatra, and I was a chef to keep when we won the Prix d'Estates at Harrisburg, and we've had some nice jumpers, but has not in the past has not been our focus.
You talked about your daughter. So what was that like training her? Did you train her throughout her junior career?
We had Bill Cooney sort of helped her with the equitation. I sort of did the hunters because those are sort of straightforward, easier to do. Yet she was a little bit tall when she was 12, but then she never grew anymore, so we got onto horses a little bit earlier than scheduled. My youngest daughter got scared early, so she didn't pursue it. My son never had any interest in the horses. My wife showed herself, but Nancy's a good horse show mother. She sort of knows to steer a little bit clear, very supportive, but and knew how to handle everybody, which is even more important.
What is Erin doing now?
She has a little business in the Hamptons in the summer, and then they come down and spend the winter in Wellington. And then she'll have them in the fall. They go to Tarrytown to Sleepy Hollow, right outside New York City.
What's that like having her in the business?
Well, it's fun. Being a know-it-all, like I said myself, I like to help as much as I can, but she got that little bit stubborn gene that I've been accused of having too. So we have to sort of weigh our, pick our battles.
So we know, it's always fun to win in this business, but there's a lot of losing too. How do you handle that, like as a rider and a trainer, and help your students?
The losing, we try, first thing we try not to have those kind of things happen, but when they do, we just talk about something important like dinner and move on. I don't like dwelling on the negative.
How about, did you ever get nervous as a rider, or do you?
Oh yes, of course. I got terribly nervous, but then that's what makes it fun for me, was getting nervous and getting excited about it and learning to put your nerves, make them work for you instead of against you. I think if you weren't worried or nervous, it would take a lot of the fun out of it, and the thrill of, the winning. If you're wound up a little bit about it. Otherwise, I'd have slept through the classes.
And how about your students? You ever have to kind of get them handling their nerves better?
The students, yes, but as much as I know everything about everything, I do take a second seat, and I have them talk to a sports psychologist, which is their and so I can stay out of that part of it. Instead of acting like I know how to do all that, I'd rather give the real expert their chance at it. I do try to play it down, though, when something goes wrong. I don't make I try to move on. I don't keep throwing that back at them, and I try to move on. I figure as much as this costs, you might as well have a good time spending all this money. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's our general attitude. I'd like to keep it light and a lot of fun, but at the same time develop your skills.
When did you make the transition from, you obviously were riding and doing very well, and then moving on to more just focusing on training? How did that transition?
I kind of outgrew it physically. Anyway, no, I think when I'd sort of won what I thought I was going to win and sort of achieved my skills. I wasn't going to the Olympics, and I knew it. And I put all my focus into my daughter and training young kids and developing horses and sales. We didn't have the derbies back when I showed, so the last big hunter class they had at Upperville, before they started having these derbies, I happened to win it in '86, and then they kind of disappeared for a while. So basically I'd achieved my goals, my personal goals, as far as riding. And I figured I might as well try to step away from it while I had quite a resume.
You talked about the sales business. You have a successful sales business. I guess, how did that evolve? Did you do it as you were riding?
Yes, as I was riding, it developed. And nowadays with the social media, you can get so much more done. And the cell phones, I can remember going back to the cheap hotels that only had 2 lines for long distance, and there weren't any cell phones, so you'd spend half the night trying to get a hold of the person and try to make a deal, or stand in line at the pay phones at the shows, and it was a nightmare. And nowadays it's very simple. You send some videos on the phone or WhatsApp, and they look at them, and you're good to go. They come try them, or they negate them, or sometimes they buy them without coming. Just take my word for it. And of course, the leasing has become a huge way to make money. I own over 100 horses, not including my breeding stock and or parts of a lot of those, not all of them. But we lease out lots and lots of horses every year for the equitation, hunters, jumpers, all of it.
What do you look for in a good horse?
I start at the feet. That to me is crucial. I don't like buying horses that feet don't match. And then I want the good legs and a head. Back when I was younger, I didn't think the head mattered that much, but they're way easier to sell when they're pretty. A pretty head and neck is way easier to market than a plain-headed horse. with an upside down neck. Of course, I had to find that out through trial and error because I can't listen to anybody. But pretty head and neck is a good start. Like an athletic horse, a horse that's knees come up, wither comes up when he jumps. I mean, some of these horses that have won World Cup finals and huge classes that jump out of shape, I think they're the exception. And you have to be careful when you're looking because you might pass one of those up because they don't use their knees good, like Albany. And there have been lots and lots of horses, but one that comes to mind is that horse that Leslie Howard won so much on Albany. But basically an athletic. I like a big eye on a horse, a big shoulder. I don't mind a little more slope in the pastern than you see a lot of these warm bloods have, those short, straight pasterns. I like a little longer pastern myself. Some of my best hunters were a little long in the pastern, but they were also very scopy, good moving horses. Color doesn't really matter. I like dark brown myself, but I don't really care what color they are.
Mm-hmm. I think you said something people will always, they might be disappointed, but they won't ever be surprised.
Yes, that's sort of my slogan. As long as you tell them up front everything that you can tell them about the horse, and they may be disappointed, but hopefully they won't be surprised because you've already exposed what you know about the horse. And nowadays, an undisclosed issue about a horse, you can get in a lot of trouble for not disclosing that. If the horse weaves or cribs or kicks or rears up at the end gate, or now they've got cameras on everything, so it's easy to prove one way or the other. I like to stand behind my horses, and I'd rather than being short-sighted and make a quick buck, I'd rather keep the people happy so they come back.
Talking about as you're teaching students, and as a judge too, what do you think riders today need to work on?
In general, they're spoiled, and with society as it is today, you don't make them work too hard. I mean, to get better, they need to ride a lot without stirrups. I see most of the riders in general are loose, and I think they need to become better horsemen, get back behind the scenes.
And do you have a favorite exercise or type of work that you like to teach your students?
We spend a lot of time cantering cavalettis without stirrups on different patterns. That would be my favorite exercise. Playing with the distances and the strides between them, and learning the automatic release where their balance is developed without the stirrups. That's a dying art. You only see it in the Olympics and where they're really top riders.
Mm-hmm. You're a judge as well. Mm-hmm. What do you like and dislike about being a judge?
I dislike the fact that you can't pin everybody first to keep them all happy, but I know what the majority of the people, and I try to do a good job, and if you do it like you see it, everybody's sort of going to get their turn. I think when you can't play favorites, it's too black and white. There's not that kind of much gray area. The money's not that good, so that I certainly don't do it for the money, but I feel I owe it to the industry. Like I said, being a know-it-all and having judged I judged Devon in 81 and 83. That was 100 years ago. I try to do a few shows a year to try to get around, just see different parts of the country. I think it's a little bit of an obligation. It's a shame when you don't have other top trainers that will do the judging. Because that is something that needs to be addressed.
And then we were just talking earlier before you started the interview about that you sold your stable down in Ocala, and so that's kind of a big transition. How's that going?
I'm trying to cut back, like I said, and move on a little bit. Now, my wife and I do a lot of traveling these days, and trying to leave this in a position that it can still carry itself without me being there every day on the day-to-day basis. I have real good assistants right now, and it's easier for me to leave. and go where I wanted to go.
What would you say over the years, what's been the hardest part of the sport for yourself?
I think the hardest part probably is raising 3 children and being married and trying to do this rigorous show schedule, I would say. I've been very lucky. I've had a lot of good friends, made a lot of good friends in this business, and like I said, I've achieved the accolades I was looking after. Of course, the money's always an issue. I've been real lucky, though, as far as that goes along the way. I've made nice investments, of course, some real crummy ones, too. But at the end of the day, I think, raising a family and you have to have the camper, and we've got lots of tales to tell along the way through that journey.
Do you do anything other than horses? Is that always...
I attempt golf, but it's a good thing I'm not making my living playing golf. Let's put it that way. We used to go skiing, but now I'm afraid if I fell down, I wouldn't be able to get back up.
What's something that people don't know about you that you could share?
It's pretty much an open book. I'm trying to think what would be somebody they don't know. I don't know. They all know I'm a loudmouth and I know it all, and there's not a lot of hidden agenda there. I don't like showy cars, but I guess they know that. I'm very frugal. I think most of them know that. I can't eat chocolate and I can't drink. Those are 2 things a lot of people might not know, because it triggers migraine headaches. But I don't know that there's a lot of any hidden agenda or any. I can't think of anything off the top of my head anyway.
And what advice would you give your younger self?
Try to listen. That'd be the biggest advice. And quit thinking you know everything. Yeah. That's kind of genetic. My dad had his own business. I've got my own business. So try not to be so hard-headed. Would be and take advantage of being healthy. More exercise. You get older, then you just have aches and pains everywhere. Younger, I always thought, I could look like that if I wanted to, but it was not high on the priority list.
Why do you think you've been so successful?
I think one of the things is probably being friendly and being able to talk to all levels of people. I guess it's one of my insecurities where I want everybody to like me. And I make an effort with everyone, tall and fat and skinny and old and young, and it doesn't matter. For my well-being, I like to be liked. I think that, and I also think if you try to be honest in your sales, that helps multiply it, and good things come to good people. Had a few life lessons along the way where I didn't do anything and got rewarded. So just by being friendly, those are always in the back of my head.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Join us again for upcoming conversation with France's Olympic show jumper Eric Neve and top hunter rider Hannah Isop. You can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. While you're there, please rate and review the show. I'm Sandra Olenek, and you've been listening to the Practical Horseman Podcast.